Friends, welcome back to Edupedia World. The previous two lectures we saw about heat and calorimetry, the concepts of latent heat, the specific heat capacity. We saw numericals based on them. Today's lecture will be a bit more theoretical, but a very important lecture nonetheless. Today we will be discussing about greenhouse effect. We'll understand what greenhouse effect is. And then the second half of the lecture will be focused on global warming. Global warming is one of the most important and dangerous situations which we are facing today as a human civilization and for the planet Earth as a whole. So we need to understand what this means and how can we play a part to reduce global warming. I hope this lecture will be very educational to you. So let us start with the lecture on greenhouse effect and global warming. Let us begin by understanding what the greenhouse effect is. So we'll be discussing greenhouse effect. The term greenhouse effect or the phenomena greenhouse effect derives its name from the way cold countries used to preserve heat for plantation and stuff. What they used to do is that they make glass walls to grow plants. What is the utility of glass walls? What glass walls does is that it allows wavelengths, radiations of higher, rather smaller wavelength pass through it. So glass allows low wavelength to pass, and this low wavelength radiations are absorbed by the plant to carry out its photosynthesis and also to capture heat. After that, what happens is the material inside the glass house radiates back radiations, but those radiations are of higher wavelength. They fall in the infrared spectrum rather than the visible spectrum or the ultraviolet spectrum. So the radiations which are radiated back are of higher wavelength, and what the glass does is it does not allow the higher wavelengths to pass through it. So high wavelengths are not allowed to pass. What is the effect of that? Let us think about it for a moment. What is happening is low wavelength light is coming in, and high wavelength light, which is being radiated by the bodies inside the glass house, is not allowed to go out. Okay, this will result in heating up inside the glass house, right? Because radiation, which is a form of energy, is coming in, but it is not able to escape out. So there is net accumulation of energy inside the glass house, and as a result, the temperature inside the glass house is maintained relatively higher than the ambient temperature, the temperature surrounding. That is how the plantation system works in colder countries. Otherwise, the plants would not have survived. This whole phenomena is known as the greenhouse effect. The phenomena that low wavelength light passes through the glass and high wavelength light does not pass through the glass, as a result of which the energy or the heat content inside builds up, is the greenhouse effect. Now, how does this translate to the greenhouse effect on a global scale? So what happens globally is that we have atmosphere which has different gases. Among those gases, we have some gases which are basically greenhouse gases. Gases like carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, and CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. So let me write it down. Carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, CH4 methane, CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. These are some of the gases which are greenhouse gases. These gases present in the atmosphere play a role similar to the glass walls of a greenhouse establishment. So what is happening is that the sun's radiations passes through the layers of the atmosphere. They pass through the layers of the atmosphere, reaches the Earth's surface, and are absorbed by the Earth. The ocean water and the land masses absorb those radiations. As a result, we get heat. That is the heat from the sun. But in an ideal scenario, or in scenarios, what happens that whenever there is a heated body, it will radiate out radiations too. But those radiations are of higher wavelength, that is lower energy. Now, similar to greenhouse plantation systems, what will happen? This high wavelength radiations are being trapped, are not allowed to escape because of these greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases keep them trapped inside the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, so we are getting radiations in terms of uh, low wavelength, and we are not allowing it to radiate back into the space because of the presence of greenhouse gases. As a result, there is a buildup of heat throughout the Earth, and this is actually very important for the survival of Earth. Why so? Because in the absence of greenhouse gases, the amount of heat that we are getting from the sun is more or less sufficient to bring the temperature of the Earth to around minus 18 degrees Celsius. So if these greenhouse gases were not present, then the whole Earth would have been somewhere around minus 20 degrees Celsius. But due to the presence of these greenhouse gases, the average temperature of the Earth is not minus 18 degrees Celsius, but it rises to a more tolerable, a more pleasant temperature, something around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius on an average, 15 to 20 degrees Celsius on an average. So these rise in temperature, this almost 35-40 degrees Celsius rise in temperature is because of the greenhouse gases being present there. So actually, if we think about it, the presence of these gases is important for our survival. But what is actually happening is these gases, especially carbon dioxide and chlorofluorocarbons, the content of those gases are increasing rapidly. Why so? There are many reasons. Few of the most important reason is the presence of a lot of industries nowadays, which eject out a lot of these gases. Then we have a lot of automobiles being used. Added to that, there is a lot of deforestation. What is the effect of deforestation is that plants are necessary to convert carbon dioxide to oxygen. In the absence of forest, the ideal proportion of carbon dioxide and oxygen is being disturbed. As a result, the carbon dioxide content is going higher. The overall effect of this increasing amount of greenhouse gases is that the average temperature of the Earth is rising slowly, but surely it is rising. We have data from past several years which point to a continuous growth in the rise in the temperature of the Earth. The point to be noted is that there are two factors. There are natural factors which leads to greenhouse gases too, and there are artificial factors, the man-made factors like the industries and automobiles, which leads to the increase of greenhouse gases too. As a result, what is happening is that the overall temperature is rising, and if we do not put a check to the amount of greenhouse gases which we are releasing to the atmosphere, very soon the temperature is going to soar pretty high. The estimates are that at around 21, if the similar trend continues of the growth of greenhouse gases, the average overall temperature of the Earth will be around 64 degrees Celsius. In this year, it will be around 64 degrees Celsius, which is quite unbearable, frankly speaking. So there is a need to put a check to how much greenhouse gases is being emitted, and that is to be taken into account to make policies and bring about changes in our day-to-day activities to control this phenomena or heating up of the whole planet. Now this phenomena of heating up of the planet, which we have been noticing for many years now, we have scientific data supporting the fact that the average temperature of Earth is increasing, is called as global warming. Global warming. So what is this? What is global warming? It's increase in average temperature of Earth's surface due to increase in amount of greenhouse gases. Okay, so the phenomena which we studied here, the greenhouse effect, is leading to an increase in average temperature of the Earth, and that phenomena of increase in average temperature of the Earth due to the increase in the greenhouse gases is termed as global warming. Now let us see what can be the effects of global warming. The seasonal changes which we see, the natural pattern of seasons may be disturbed. The average temperature will certainly rise. Then the number of species which we see will start to deteriorate, because there will be many species which will not be able to bear the increased temperatures. The warming of the oceans, there will be the average temperature of the ocean will also increase. As a result, many of the marine life, the creatures of ocean will die out. Then the glaciers at the north and south pole has already started melting, and once it starts melting exponentially, or a lot of it is molten, then what will happen is the average sea level of the whole world will rise. As a result, the cities which are at sea level presently will no longer exist. They will be submerged. Then there will be a shift in the farming regions, because there will be a holistic overall rise in temperature. The regions which now support farming may not be able to support farming in the future, and we might have to move to higher latitudes to do farming. And high temperature breeds a lot of bacteria, viruses, and as a result a lot of diseases. So there may be a rise in the disease, and also there will be new diseases coming up. Okay, so these are some of the very important issues that will be faced if we do not take immediate action to curb down global warming. Now, what are the steps that can be taken from us as a human species to bring down the global warming? There has to be a threefold intervention from our part. There has to be some technological steps needed to be taken. What technological steps? The first and foremost is the use of renewable energy. What does renewable energy mean? Renewable energy refers to the energy sources which are not dependent on fossil fuels, which are continuously renewable. Another prime example of that is the solar energy. We are already working on those lines, trying to capture the solar energy, the energy emitted by the sun in the form of rays. We are using solar panels and stuff to do those tasks, but we need to push the technology further and further so that it is much more cheaper and much more affordable for us to take it as a actual feasible alternative to existing fossil fuels. Then there should be change in the transportation system. Again, a lot of work is already being done in these lines. As of date, the most important fuel to power the transportation systems are petroleum and diesel products. Those are fossil fuels. But we need to find alternatives in terms of renewable energy, again, solar powered transportation system or battery based transportation system, which will consume less energy per kilometer, or the effective emission of greenhouse gases needs to be reduced. Such technologies needs to be put into place. So the second thing is in transportation, then there should be similar technological advances in other aspects too, like the day-to-day cooking activities which takes place, and the overall efficiency of the systems needs to increase basically, so that even if we were to use fossil fuel for some task, the increased efficiency would reduce the overall emission of the greenhouse gases. So efficiency of systems. Now, these are the technological challenges which we face and which are actually being taken care of, in the sense that a lot of people are investing a lot of money and manpower to find such technological methods to overcome the problem of global warming. Then the second thing needs to be, there should be policy changes. Policy changes as in we need to find ways to educate our younger generation. The younger generation needs to understand the importance of our earth in the holistic picture, and how harmful can fossil fuels be. What are the steps that they need to take as a generation for the earth to survive in the long run? So education, not only of children, I mean even the present generation, the adult needs to be educated, needs to be well informed what are the repercussions of global warming. Secondly, there has to be population control. Why so? Population control. The matter of fact is that human population as a species, it is itself a source of a lot of carbon dioxide. We inhale oxygen, we emit out carbon dioxide. The more the population of our species increases, the more will it be a burden on planet Earth. So we need to take care of our population. It has a lot of repercussions, not only on global warming but on a lot of factors. So we need to make policies to control the population. We need to make policies to increase education. Then there has to be reforestation. What is reforestation? A lot of forests are being cut down. As a result, there are less and less plants to convert the carbon dioxide of the atmosphere to useful oxygen, thereby reducing the effect of greenhouse gases. We need to undo that. We need to increase the concentration of trees and plants, not just in forest. There has to be reforestation, but also in our townships and cities. So this is part of a policy as well as an action plan that needs to be implemented, not just from the government's end, but also from the public end. Now finally, there has to be some economic repercussion. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that there are industries which are polluting. Okay, and the industries, the end user are basically us, we people. So since there is a lot of availability of material, and nowadays many have are economically much more stable to afford those materials, we sometimes forget at what cost does it come. Not the cost in terms of money, but also in the terms of environmental factors. So there has to be economic aspect associated with the environmental factor for the industries, and as a result on us. So there needs to be something based on, let's say, carbon tax or some form of taxation, basically to make us realize that it is coming at a cost to the environment, not just a cost in terms of monetary aspect. Then there, as I said, the policy changes. There was reforestation. This needs to be done in the economic manner too, as in the industries as well as the government should be made a stakeholder in the fact that they should be carrying out reforestation on their own part, and there has to be some economic implications if they do not do their part. There needs to be some form of control measure so that they do their part of the reforestation. Okay, so we have seen that it is quite important for us as a species and for the planet Earth to survive that we need to look at the factor of global warming very, very seriously. Else, as I discussed initially, there are a lot of things that are at stake. So once through this lecture, what I would like to say is that understand the idea of greenhouse effect, but more importantly, understand the implications in terms of global warming which are being brought upon us by ourselves through the increased content of greenhouse effects. And you being the next generation, you need to understand the importance of reducing the greenhouse gases to curb down on global warming. I know that this has been a long lecture, but I hope that you take home some of the idea from today's lecture and implement this on day-to-day life, and hopefully some of you might end up working on this field in the long term in form of research or something to help find technologies, or you may be part of the government which makes policies, or United Nations to take some steps to actually help the progress of the human civilization as a whole and save our Earth. With this, I will conclude today's lecture. This is the last lecture on heat on calorimetry. From the next lecture, we'll start a new topic. Thank you for hearing out on this important discussion. So till next lecture, have a great day. Goodbye.